Welcome to Murder.
And everything else.
My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl. And Joy and I are two old friends that are going to chit chat about, funnily enough, murder and everything else. And Joy and I are old friends because I think we've known each other for about 25 years now.
Has it
Yeah.
been 25 years?
I did the calculation. I think I met you in 97.
Oh my
I
God.
believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
think I was, what was I, 16?
yes, we'll leave it at that because I was just about to say we're also old, as in we are women of a certain age.
That's right. You don't need to
Yep.
go into any more detail there.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
Right. And now for our highs and lows. Let's hear your highs and lows for the week.
Well, I feel like, can you hear me? Because I feel like suddenly my voice is becoming kind of hoarse. Um, I have not had really good sleep. Ugh, let's talk about sleep deprivation.
Ugh.
Um, I don't know, just got a lot on my mind. Like the other night, for example, I fell asleep probably about 10 p.m. and then Callie, one of my dogs, had to go to the bathroom at 10:30. So I got a whopping half hour sleep before it was interrupted. And then I took her outside. I have a doggy door, but I'm very paranoid. So Kevin and I agreed to not leave the door open because we don't want any critters coming in the middle of the night. So I took her out 10:30, came back in, slept for another whopping 3 hours. At 1:30 a.m., she had to go out again. Her out, and I could not fall back asleep after 1:30, and I the next day. That was
Oh,
yesterday.
no.
So my sleep is all screwed up. And then I tried to sleep early last night, and in the middle of the night, the shower rod fell. The shower curtain fell. It sounded like a window had been busted through, and so that woke me up. It's just like,
Oh.
I don't know. So definitely my low. And my high is always recording this podcast with you. It's so fun. And my other high is going to be when we're done, I'm going to crawl back into bed and take a nap.
Oh,
So that's
wow.
my
Yeah, I am not a napper. I have tried. I remember the sleep deprivation feelings, like, when my kids were babies and you I would sleep for maybe an hour and a half at a stretch because
oh gosh.
they're both girls, and one of the girls was really good. She was like in and out in 5 minutes. She got what she needed. She was done. The other one would like lay there and like, I swear she was like playing games and doing Sudokus in her head while she was like, I'm going to just take a little sip. I'm going to wait, let it run out my mouth. And then I'm going to take another little sip. Sometimes it was 45 minutes, 50 minutes.
Oh
And
no.
I mean, you can't, it was awful. And then, 2 hours like 2 hours would go by and she'd want to eat again, but it took her 45 minutes to eat. So I maybe got an hour sleep after putting her down, going to the bathroom, getting some water. And I remember distinctly feeling at a certain point, like if I were in one of those sleep deprivation chambers at like Guantanamo, I would have given up all the nuclear codes. I would have given them my bank account numbers. I would have given them like, the name of the, tormentor from middle school. I would have told them the answers to all the Spanish tests that I like aced. I mean, I would have given them whatever they wanted. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely know the way to get to, the White House. Here, let me take you. Because I couldn't function. And I remember thinking at a certain point that I was probably going to lose my mind
Yeah.
because because
No.
it just wasn't a natural feeling to go on so little sleep. But then after a while, I remember with the first kid, it took me about 6 weeks and it just clicked. And I was like, I'm going to be this tired for the rest of my life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That just, yeah. Sleep deprivation is really, this is going to be, it really sucks. Um, like, I mean, in the last
That
week,
is
it's just
so
been terrible.
profound.
Yeah, isn't it? It just really
Yeah.
sucks. There's no way else to put it. Like my eyes feel like sandpaper. I can feel my voice going. And we were talking earlier about panic attacks. Like I,
Hmm.
you feel, I feel like I'm in a twilight zone, and it's, yeah,
Hmm.
just awful.
It is. Yesterday I had to drive one of my kids to a tournament, and I had not had any sleep for 3 nights running. And by
Mm,
any sleep, I usually need at least 7 hours. I can
mhm,
function pretty well in 7 hours, but the ideal situation is 8 to 8,
mhm.
8 to 9 hours. But I understand
Wow.
9 hours is, but like on weekends now, if I can get 10 hours, ooh, I'm good. But
Wow. I
yeah,
can't
I
sleep that
know.
long.
But that's also why I don't nap, because I worry that if I nap, I won't be able to sleep at night.
Mm,
But but yeah, I had gone on very little sleep for 3 nights, and it's because I had so much happening on the next days. And I've discovered as I get older, if I have things that I'm thinking about, I can't turn my brain off and go to sleep. I have to think about those things and make lists. And sometimes I have to get up, and I know this is all very shocking to you because 25 years ago, I could have slept through a sandstorm, an ice storm, a snowstorm, a windstorm, and woken up and, not had any breakfast and not brought any money and just rolled into work. But now it's like, if I have one or two things, I have to actually get out of bed and take care of them before I go to bed so that I can sleep.
yeah.
And so I had all these things. I had a bunch of stuff due on Thursday, a bunch of stuff due on Friday, and then this big tournament on Saturday. And it was 2 hours from home. So we had to get up at 5 a.m., drive there, find where we were playing, and blah, blah, blah. And then sit through an all day 8 o'clock to, I think we walked out of there at 7:30 at night.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, so it was dark when we left home, and then it was dark again when we got in the car, and then drive 2 hours back home. And remember, it, it's not like driving, say, from where I grew up to Sacramento, because I know how to get to Sacramento. I don't need GPS. I know all the freeways, know all the exits, but that's not the case because we live on the East Coast and we live in a town that we've only lived in for a certain number of years. So I don't know all the towns in the state. I don't know all the freeways. So driving on unfamiliar roads in the dark is a
Mm.
little bit of stretch. Thankfully, it was not raining. That would
Oh
have been
God.
even
That,
worse.
yeah, that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah,
But I g
but we got there. But on the way back, I said to my kid, I go, you need to stay awake and talk to me. I understand you played like 1,600 hours of volleyball today, but you're gonna have to talk to me to keep me awake because you do not want your mom falling asleep driving out here in the country
if
and
you
running
wanna
up.
get home safe, you better keep me awake.
Exactly. Exactly. But I also decided going forward that because I know this about myself now that I'm, middle aged, that I have to go the night before and stay in a hotel. Or if I feel like that, I have to take an overnight bag and check into a hotel. I don't care if it's one of those CD pull off the side of the road, it's like 16 ways to break into the room kind of hotels. I have to stop because it's not a good feeling to be running on that
No.
little energy and having to drive, and it's dark. And the other thing is like, it's just all the other drivers and yeah, forget
Yeah.
about it. So I totally hear you with the feeling. You feel sick. You feel
Yeah. Oh,
like shaky and wobbly when you don't
yes.
sleep.
Yes, the night that this, well, it's been a week of accumulation, but the other night, this 10:30 and 1:30 thing, I came home and I couldn't even eat. I was so tired. Like, if I can't eat, the world is ending. I was like literally tired of chewing. And then I got nauseous because I was so tired. And then
Um,
my mom used to always tell me, it's okay if you're not really sleeping, just rest your eyes. That
nope,
has never worked for me.
nope.
If I am not in like some kind of sleep state, I am tired. And I swear to you, I sat at the desk and I almost started crying. Like the tears started. I was like a child, like a toddler that I was going to have a tantrum because I'm like,
Right.
now I have to sit here and work, and I just want to cry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's no good. And also how valuable are you
Really,
as an
right?
employee sitting at the desk
Exactly.
like it's
Oh,
my work day. I can cry if I want.
like exactly. That's my next
Yeah.
album. Yeah, it's anyway. But what's your high? What was that? Is that your low, or
So the
what's your low
three,
and high?
let's see, what's my low and high? I think my low is so happy Lunar New Year. Don't
Hmm.
forget that toy. Um, every year I try to make Lunar New Year a big deal because, especially the last 10 years, because we've lived on the East Coast, we live in a smaller town. There's not a lot of Asian Americans in this town. And I wanted my kids to have, a tradition. Also, it ushers in the new lunar year and a new Chinese zodiac animal. And I just always thought it was really special and fun and different because when we moved here, we moved from Cupertino, California, where if you weren't Asian, something was happening because everybody in the neighborhood was Asian. So I wanted to make it special. So I always make dumplings, because the more dumplings you eat on Chinese New Year, the more wealth you will have throughout the year. That's how
Mm.
the legend goes. Well, I bought all the good stuff to make the dumplings, and all the good stuff still sitting in the fridge. So that's the low. I never made the dumplings. I didn't even buy the frozen dumplings as a backup. But the high is I did make kimchi soup, and I did have that for dinner with a nice big bowl of rice. And then I shared it with my kid because she liked it. And I made it so stinking hot that we couldn't finish it. I mean, spicy hot. I put
Spicy
I
hot.
put
Yeah.
like 2 peppers in it, like fresh serrano peppers, and then I put red pepper paste, and I put kimchi, and I put a bunch of seasonings in it. So it was like black pepper. I put yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, this is gonna burn your booty hole. I was like, this is gonna be good.
Well, if you have any leftover, you can use it to like clean your clean your grout with.
That's right. So that's my high kimchi soup.
Yeah. And your low.
The low was the dumplings. I didn't make the
Oh, the jump.
dumplings. Now,
This is
now the
no,
dumpling filling is rotting in the fridge.
no. This is
So
how tired I am. Not even 2 minutes ago, you just said what your low is. Oh goodness gracious.
this could be a really long podcast,
This is good. It is. Oh my
or
gosh. Well,
it's going to be really short. And if you hear the snory sounds, we'll know it's not Jet. We'll know it's you.
exactly. If I suddenly go silent, then you know that you're going to have to take over.
That's right.
Okay. Well, I think that we need to spend a little bit of time talking about the updates that have come out on Brian Koberger, who is the
Totally, totally. But
sus.
can we go over the disclaimers really quickly for this
Oh, I
week?
totally forgot about that. Go.
Sorry.
You
I
see, I'm
just
tired. This is what happens.
So I have really, really good news. We found someone who can edit in the music for our intros and for our outros, and they are working on it as we speak. Um, but we don't have it available for week 2 podcast, which, by the way, went up this evening. Woohoo!
Yay. Well, they're not
So,
going to hear it next week, but that's okay.
right, exactly. So by the time you hear this, guess what? You'll have intro, outro music.
That's right.
So
Yay. You're going to be
exactly,
so
because
surprised.
in the world of podcasting for women in their, in that certain age category, If you can't figure it out yourself, find somebody else who can. All right.
That's right. Yeah, and also we have to make the disclaimer each week that this is not for kids, because of the subject material, possibly,
Right.
and also our potty mouths, possibly.
That's right. And I
So
already said burn your booty hole. So that it gets worse from it goes we're downhill from there.
that's right. So, okay, well, having said that, all right, so let's just talk briefly about Brian Koberger. So, excuse me, after the affidavit was unsealed, they also
Who is
unsealed
he
court.
again? Who is he again?
Brian Koberger, in case
I'm just
no,
kidding.
hey, I do want to make this correction corner or whatever we want to call it, but we have been corrected by a few people who live in that region or are just more a lot smarter than us that it's not Moscow, it's
Yeah,
Moscow, right?
it's Moscow.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but Joy,
Yeah,
how do you
shout out to Heidi. Shout out to Jill.
no,
Thanks for telling us.
okay,
It's
but
not Moscow.
how do you pronounce COW? Come on.
Cow.
Okay. So Moscow. Okay. So
Moscow. Moscow.
in our defense, but the English language, with your and roll, we just it's just
There and
complicated.
there and there.
There and it really is like I think learning the English language would be like a real feat. It's yeah. So anyway, Moscow. It's Moscow, Idaho. And after the affidavit was released, they unsealed the court documents of the search warrant for his apartment. So these are some of the items that they retrieved. Number one, I'm sorry if I'm driving people crazy with my throat clearing, but I feel like I'm about to lose my voice. Maybe if I do an ASMR.
Ooh, you could whisper. If you
One,
whisper, we might get extra viewers. It's just like if we could show our feet, we might get extra viewers there too.
there's a fetish for everything. Although, you
Okay.
know what I heard professional singers say that whispering is worse for your voice? Like when they were trying to
Oh,
save their voice for their concerts and stuff, that they were told not to whisper.
oh,
Secrets of the trade. Any
interesting.
so it's reported that they found one nitrite type black glove, which is I assume your all around black rubber glove, a Walmart receipt with one Dickies tag. Is that like a Dickies? Is that like a khakis? I don't.
Yeah, it's Dickies is like workwear.
Okay.
It's
A Marshall's. Yeah,
workwear stuff.
yeah. A Marshall's receipt, a dust container from the vacuum, which that could have really damning evidence. 8 possible hair strands, and I'm going to assume it didn't look like his, or else why would they take it? One Fire TV stick with cord and plug, one possible animal hair strand, which is very interesting because Kaylee had
Had a
a
dog.
dog. Yeah.
Hmm.
Multiple different hairs, which is kind of redundant of the 8 possible hair strands. Um, Computer tower, which that's going to be a trove of evidence. One collection of a dark red spot. Now that could be wine or something, but maybe not. Two cuttings from an uncased pillow of reddish brown stain. Two top and bottom of mattress covers packaged separately with multiple stains. And there's also a lot of reports of digital evidence where Brian purportedly followed several of the victims on Instagram and he DM'd a couple. Okay, for people that are of a certain age, that's direct message, right? Hey, when I first heard that, I was like, DM, DM. Um,
Oh my God.
he DM'd a couple of the victims, and one in particular, when he received no response, he kept following up, and he was like, "How you doing? How you doing? How you doing?" So that's,
Ew.
I think the digital evidence is going to be the most damning because, like with the animal hair strand, he could have picked that up anywhere. It's going to be hard they're gonna be able to say it's consistent with the dog that Kaylee had, but they're not gonna be able to say that is the exact dog, right? So there's a
Right.
lot of reasonable doubt, I think, that could be brought up with an animal hair. He could have picked it up from a lot of places. And also this is 6 weeks later after the murders that they got this from his apartment. The guy
Dude,
cannot be.
if I run into you at Walmart and I hug you, you literally will have 600 dog hairs on you.
Mhm, and vice versa. We'll
Because
be swapping dog hairs.
I'm
No,
covered in dog hair.
yeah, the transfer DNA is really, it's really touchy. I mean, it's hard to prove, but I think the digital, evidence is gonna be really, compelling, and maybe what they get from his vacuum cleaner, because this is 6 weeks after the murders were committed, so it's hard for me to imagine that he just left blood-stained stuff around his apartment, unless he thought he was so, gonna get away with it. I don't, because they like,
Maybe he thought he was above the law or something.
yeah, and they like, what you call? Souvenirs. So, I don't
Ew.
know. Yeah, so this bottom and what is it? Bottom of the mattress cover packaged separately with multiple stains. That kind of makes me feel like he took it and like wrapped it up.
Well,
I don't
maybe
know.
also, this could go back to the thing I said last week. Maybe he has also committed other killings.
Yep. Yeah, there's some guy on YouTube. I watched it briefly. It's so hard to, excuse me, it's so hard to know what to believe and what not to believe because there's so many trolls out there. And there's a video, somebody put out an audio of, the house that was like close to Xana and Ethan's room, and they recorded like sounds of whimpering and the dog barking and a loud thud. Well, people have put together, I don't know if it's doctored or what, but you can hear yelling and screaming. And, a lot of the comments is like, this is fake and so on and so forth. But uh, I forgot where I was going.
You don't,
This
you
is what
don't,
happens when you're sleep deprived. You just
you
prattle
said
on
you
with no end in sight.
You said you don't know. There's a lot of like trolls on the internet. You don't
Yeah,
know
you
what.
don't. Yeah, you don't know what to believe. So I think at this point going forward, trial, there's kind of it's just going to be like people making up stuff or whatever. There's also reports that he had visited. I think it was Maddie and Xana that worked at this Greek restaurant, and that he had gone a couple of times to see them. And then I saw an article where the owner is like disputing it that he was
Huh.
there, and in my mind, it's like, what is the big deal with him going to that restaurant? I don't know why she's trying to dispute it. So what? He went there. It doesn't make her part of the murder. I mean, so I'm
Yeah,
not sure why she's trying to say he wasn't there. But
I don't know. I think that sometimes people are. I mean, I guess it would be bad for business. Yeah, come down to Greek cuisine where murderers go to eat before they commit crimes. I mean, but do you really want that to be your like, ooh, this is the chair that murderer sat in right before, So, I mean, not to make light of the situation, but maybe she feels like it puts a
uh,
stain or a pallor on her place of business.
I guess I didn't look at it. I didn't look at it like that. That's a good point. That is a very good point.
Also, if you're superstitious, you're
Yeah.
definitely not going to want people to know this. I we walked into an Airbnb, totally off topic, but I'm just going to go to the
No,
story
go for it.
in Washington D.C. We went to D.C. Some months back. We stayed in this really adorable historical Airbnb basement apartment that was so cute. I think the house was built, I don't know, 12th century BC. I don't know. But
Haunted. Yeah.
the United States, anything after 1750 is a big deal. And so they had like, you know, stuff on the wall, and you walk around, like pictures on the wall of the construction and kind of going into detail who owned the house. It burned down during this war. It was, it housed this many people during this civil uprising, whatever. And I'm looking at it, and then you walk through and you look at the floor plan, and I immediately thought, I wonder if this was where servants would live. And if they
Mhm.
weren't servants, I wonder maybe if this was where like the slaves would come to cook dinner because slaves were not allowed to live in the same residence as the landowner and the white owners. They would have to live in another building because they weren't, worthy. But yet they would come in and clean and cook and things like that, raise children and all that. So you do walk through, and I thought, wow, it was a very large floor plan, very, very cute place. But then one of the girls with us said, what if this is one of those Airbnbs where somebody died? And I'm
Um,
like,
yeah.
that's a horrible thought. What if somebody was murdered in here? I'm like, check, please. We're moving out right now. Yeah. So I will say that I don't know if I would stay at an Airbnb if it said on the page, like, come stay at the Ted Bundy murder site. That would really freak me out.
Well, I think that would attract some people. Do you remember when we stayed in that hotel in
Yeah. You
Santa
said it was
Maria?
shining or something.
It was definitely haunted, and it didn't bother you.
Not.
But remember I told you I was
I
like,
never
"This
felt
place."
so good in my whole life.
And my fears were confirmed because remember we stopped an employee in the hallway when we asked if it was haunted, and they were like, they had that, like, it was a bar area or whatever with a piano, and they would didn't he say that sometimes they would be piano playing with nobody there or something? I just got a bad vibe.
I paid him $5 to say that to you.
I believe it.
Ah, too
Oh my
funny.
gosh. This is gonna be another topic. Actually, this is what started me wanting to talk to you about this stuff was the Jodi Arias case and the apartment of, Travis Alexander that she murdered. It was obviously bought again, and the murder took place in the bathroom area, and it was gruesome. And I was gonna ask you, I mean, to go into this whole thing about these, houses that are flipped that where murders took place, and would you buy it if you
Uh,
knew someone died there? Like that, not like some person just dying in their sleep from old age, but like a brutal murder. I don't think I
well,
would.
I will say that since we moved to the East Coast, we have stayed in quite a few Airbnbs, like at the beach. We stayed in one up in Asheville that, by the way, was like wedged literally between the prison and like a water treatment plant. So it was like, but it was very, very cute and old, very old. So old that the bathroom had been built on as a lean-to once indoor plumbing became a thing.
Mm.
So it was a very old log cabin, and we stayed in some other really neat places. And I always look for places that are a little bit different, because when the kids were younger, they really liked, the these older, kind of period piece places that we'd stay in, and they thought they were so cute. The kitchen was tiny. The girls could literally stand at the counter and make food, and they were like, in elementary school, middle school, and so they were small. And I was like, what's up? Like, were the women back in the 1800s the size of, like, I don't know, pygmies? Because, like, I mean, I would have had to get on my knees to like chop something at the counter, and I'm not a tall person. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I don't want to see it in the bio, but I I don't feel any certain way. Although I will say, when we bought this house that we live in, the thing that really sold it to my husband was nobody's lived in this house before. It's brand new. And I was like, I kind of wanted a place where people had died and babies were born. I wanted an old farmhouse, that had history and like
No, thank you.
maybe
I'm with
people.
Gabe. No, I'm with Gabe. Clean slate. I don't need anybody having been murdered or their bad juju or
We
whatever in there.
we even looked at a place that I got some weird juju from. It literally had railings in the hallway, and I was like, "Why do you need railings in the hallway?" I was like, "I mean, it's a hallway. It's not like it's a bathroom where you put railings." And I was like, "Ooh," and then Gabe goes, "What if it was like an old folks' home and they converted it into a farmhouse?" And I was all, "Oh no, 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 we're not buying this place. Let's get out of here."
Oh, but
We're
you
good.
would be okay with people dying. Yeah, that was probably for old people
Well,
to walk
a
alone.
lot of older homes out here, um, when you go, so our neighborhood has this, and I don't know if I've ever told you this. So our neighborhood is a very small neighborhood, but we have a cemetery, and it was the local cemetery for the person who owned this land and their babies and their grandparents and all the people who were buried here. And you can tell that it was a family plot because of the high number of baby headstones. There's
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
no.
yeah, the baby headstones are the tiny headstones, and they have almost no writing on them because they would have just taken a piece of like wood, like rock and chiseled it or whatever to make the baby headstone. A lot of times the babies didn't live past, infancy. And so maybe they didn't even name it. Maybe the baby was born in childbirth or died in
Right.
childbirth. So they just would put the little stone in, and there's a lot of baby headstones. And then there are etchings on the other headstones that are adult size headstones. And I want to say the earliest one, it's either the late 1700s or early 1800s. So it's an old family owned piece of land that they probably had multiple generations living on. And I like that history. I think it's really neat. So
Wait,
if you
wait,
buy the
where was this? It was
in
a
our
place.
neighborhood, it's our neighborhood, basically.
Oh, but how close are you to
Well, so
this?
there's two streets on our HOA. It's the other street. It's not our street, and they have their own cemetery. And when we moved here, we would go and walk over there with the girls, and sometimes we take a dog, and they would. There's a little stone fence that goes around it, and you can like the girls would stand up and walk on the stone fence. I mean, we have a sign up there that says like no trespassing,
No
whatever.
walking on the stone fence?
Yeah, but traditionally you shouldn't I guess you're supposed to let the people who are sleeping there rest peacefully, and we're not supposed to
Yeah.
like go and like bother them.
Well, this is my so on top of wanting to talk to you about how you would feel about buying a place that a gruesome murder took place, I also these are the thoughts that probably keep me up at night. What happens to did you ever see Poltergeist? I saw it like 50 million
No.
times.
No. I
Okay, it's
never will see it, and I have zero interest in those kind of movies.
okay. Well, besides murder, I love
They
ghost
scare
stories.
the living bejesus out of me.
Yeah, this is what I love. Just all rainbows and unicorns. But so the movie is about, so there's a poltergeist right in the house because it's on land where there used to be a gravesite, and the bodies weren't moved when the developer moved the gravestones. So my question has always been, what happens? Because I want to be cremated, scattered somewhere in a sunflower field or on the beach. But what happens to, and then some of the ashes are actually in a grave, in a grave like my mom. So what happens to bodies and ashes and what, no, what do you call those? Mausoleums and all that. What happens in the years that go on? What happens to the land and the bodies and all of that? Do you know? I've always wondered.
So, a lot of times what will happen is when they're excavating to develop land, if they come across any human remains, they will have to stop and they'll have to exhume the bodies and the parts in an appropriate manner. And they'll either have to be laid to rest somewhere else, or they'll have to stop and they'll have to reconsider what it is they're doing. And also, so much so that, like, if it's Native American land, for example, or previously, there's been a lot of cases where people have gone ahead and tried to develop, and native tribes have come in and had to stop it because it's sacred ground. And I don't know how much you know about the I think it's called, I can't remember what the pipeline is called, but it's the large pipeline that was in the news right around the end of, I want to say it was the end of the Obama, beginning of the Trump presidency. I'm kicking myself because I followed it religiously, where they were putting this large gas pipeline through Native American territory that also included not just Native American lands, but it included burial lands
Oh
and
my
sacred
gosh.
lands. And the gas company was just, I think it was that I can't remember, Exxon pipeline or something. I don't remember. I don't want to shout out a company because I don't even know. but I followed it religiously, so religiously I can't even tell you the name of the company.
Apparently, yeah, apparently you followed it real religiously.
Right,
No,
but it was awful, and, there was all these Native Americans that came out. It turned into literally a living village because they even had a school there for the Native American children and the other children of the protesters who came out to protest. People parked their campers and it was a big, big problem, and they were just protesting that this pipeline could be moved to go through land that was not the
sacred.
land it was going through. And I thought, but of course, large companies, they're cutting costs, they're doing, whatever. I
So
don't
what did they do with the bodies they came across?
I
They
don't know, but I
see.
have heard that there's been lawsuits, in the past where they'll find that they disregarded the lands, etc., and they disrespected the remains. And now they have all this infrared stuff. You know that they found another Machu Picchu in Peru that's higher up with even better standing buildings, etc., and more history and more access to like archaeologists to find out more about the Incan culture because they've used all this infrared imaging that they can basically take images and see where these civilizations were by using this infrared imagery. And they've also found mass graves using this infrared imagery. They found mass graves in Ukraine, in Russia, from this whole like Russia Ukraine debacle. So they're able to use technology to discover these things. I think sometimes in the past when we didn't have access to this technology, people just figured, well, if I move all this stuff, nobody's going to ever see it, nobody's ever going to find it. And
See, I'm too superstitious. I would not want to be involved with a company or any. I don't want to have anything to do with disturbing like a gravesite
yeah,
and not properly,
yeah,
respectfully hand. But in all, the years and years and years of bodies being places, they must be just trampled over and discarded. I mean, I just can't imagine how this works. I've always wondered about it, like
right.
graveyards, how it works. But anyway, well, moving from that uh, happy topic to we're going to run out of time. So I'm just going to go over because you, Casey Anthony's a current story. After being out of the public eye for over a decade, she's back on Peacock, right, with a documentary. And you and I and my other friend, who shall remain nameless, because I told you I was going to do that in every episode, only because I didn't ask her for her permission. We three are the only ones that I've come across that believe her in this new documentary, which I am like astounded because we are not naive. We're not gullible. You know what I mean? We're pretty. I think we have a pretty healthy dose of cynicism with everything, right? And you watched it and you believed it. I'm like, I believe her too. So yeah, I want to cut to discuss that. Like, why why we feel that we believe her story now. But in order to get into that, we have to go over, for anybody that didn't follow it minute by minute like I did with my coworkers. We sat there at work, and thankfully we didn't have to take a lot of phone calls, so we could do our job and listen to the trial. But you don't. I'm going to go over this for people who didn't follow it, like Joy. But I'm just going to hit the main parts of Casey Anthony and the death of Kaylee Anthony, her daughter. So this happened in Orlando, Florida. I'm going to give you the highlights and then just go back. So Casey Anthony was acquitted of killing her daughter Kaylee in 2011. Casey was 22 years old and Kaylee was 3 years old, and she was so cute. Not that it matters, but she was such a cute girl. In July of 2008, Cindy, who's Kaylee's mother. Okay, these names are so confusing. Casey is the one that was on trial. Kaylee was her daughter. Cindy is Casey's mother. Casey's mother reported in July of 2008. Casey had not reported her daughter missing. It was her mother that called the police after she tracked Casey down, because Casey lived with her, with Cindy and her father, George and her daughter, Kaylee. And then she had been out for a month and not keeping in contact with her parents. And then her mother finally tracked her down. Casey had been staying with different friends during this time, and she was seen out partying for this month that her mother couldn't get in touch with her. Anyway, the mother, Cindy, gets in touch with Casey and finds out that Kaylee's been quote unquote missing for these 31 days. Um, so the Cindy calls the police, and then the police say, "Is your daughter there? Let me talk to her." So Casey gets on the phone, and she's really flippant about it. She's the police officers, the 911 operators, like, "Why haven't you reported this for 31 days?" And she's like, "Well, it's because I know who has her, and I'm working on my own to get her back." And she claims she had a nanny named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, and that this person took Kaylee and had her for that month, and she was trying to get her back. And there are rumors that Zanny was actually code for Xanax, and that Casey had been drugging Kaylee so she could go out and party, and Kaylee would sleep through the night. In October of 2008, Casey was charged with first-degree murder of Kaylee. December of that year, Kaylee's remains were found in the woods near her family's home. Casey was found not guilty of the murder, but she was found guilty of lying to the police. And in the end, jurors felt that the case was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Excuse me. So the trial. Basically, it lasted from May to July of 2011. So Casey was in jail for 3 years before the trial happened. So the prosecution's main points is that Casey did not report her daughter missing for 31 days. Her car smelled like a dead body, which was reported by her mom and her dad. She lied to the police and everyone else that she worked with, everyone else that she knew, that she worked at Universal Studios. A hair consistent with Kaylee was found in her trunk. There were unconventional testing done as air tests where they found chloroform and decomposition in her trunk. A cadaver dog hit on Casey's car, indicating human decomposition. Kaylee's remains were found in the woods. It was really just her skull, because all her little bones had been moved by animals. So they found her skull with hair on it, and she had duct tape around her mouth on her hair. She was found in a laundry bag that was like part of a set, and they found the matching set at the Anthony house. Computer analysis found that someone looked up foolproof suffocation and how to make chloroform on the computer at their house. Kaylee was wrapped in a Winnie the Pooh blanket that was matched to the other bed linen at the Anthony house. And during that time, Casey partied. There are pictures of her partying at a club. She says it was her boyfriend's work. Like, I don't know if he was a DJ or something, but she said that she was promoting his work. And also during that time when Kaylee was gone, she got a tattoo that said Bella Vita. When I get some rest, I will be able to say this. Bella Vita, which meant beautiful life. So while her daughter's gone and she's dead, she gets this tattoo that says beautiful life. So it was a lot of circumstantial evidence. The defense's case was that Casey was abused by her father and brother, and because of her abuse, she was used to covering up the truth and being in denial. The defense attorney came up with the story that Kaylee had drowned in the family pool, and that George had found Kaylee and told Casey that Cindy would never forgive her mother, and then that George disposed of Kaylee's body. And after the trial, jurors that were willing to talk said they didn't trust him. Jose Baez, who was Casey's attorney, he was very successful of throwing suspicion off of Casey and onto George, enough where there was reasonable doubt in their minds. But when we watched it, we were like, this girl murdered her daughter, whether it was accidental or intentional. She was in her care, right? And also, she wasn't even convicted of like child neglect. Like, your daughter's gone for 31 days, but she lied so much. She even said she knew who had her. She was trying to get her back. This is a perfect example of lying causes confusion. She lied so much you didn't know what was up or down. It was actually brilliant because she got off. But we thought she was guilty. We wanted to cry when we heard the not guilty verdict. But then comes her Peacock documentary a few months ago, and that's what I want to get into.
So, can I just ask really quickly, how much time went by between, so like when was the year that this case was all over the news and all over the TV? Because I remember, was it 10 years ago? Was it 5 years ago? When was it?
It was 2008.
Okay, so 2008 to a documentary then in
2022.
2022. I
Yeah.
have to say, first of all, I was so impressed. I was struck by the composure of the girl. Was it Casey? I was struck by her composure, her maturity, and how very effectively she disappeared from everything.
The public eye.
Because remember, she was on every news outlet for months.
Hmm.
And I also think about other women who've been in that situation who I do believe were wrongly accused and charged with crimes, like Amanda Knox. She has tirelessly worked to help victims who've been accused incorrectly of crimes. She's worked as a victim's advocate. She's worked to help cases behind the scenes stuff where she's not in a visible, in the forefront. And I think I even saw that she has started her own nonprofit organization to help with victims advocacy. And it's so fascinating because, like, these both of those girls literally went through the ringer and then some.
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't matter, they were both young. You go through an experience like that, and it's going to leave its mark. I look at also not even the same situation at all, but I look at Monica Lewinsky, and that girl she is so, I just have the most respect for her.
So do I.
She is
So do I.
the things that she went through at such a young age, and the fact that she's still out there. She is tirelessly, working on anti-bullying platforms online. She is an active person I follow on Twitter. She is always she's smart, she's funny, she's very appropriate, she's
Beautiful. Oh my God.
beautiful,
Not that
educated.
this matters, but she really blossomed. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
but I have to say that those experiences at a young age shaped those young women so much that you can't help but watch this documentary and be kind of amazed that she, after all of what she went through in her life growing up, and then losing her child the way she did, and then the media storm, and how she turned out, because she really has been through like 3 or 4 lifetimes worth of misery.
Yeah. I mean, she was the most hated woman in the world at that point. Imagine having that title.
Oh my God, I can't even.
Yeah. So, with all of the highlights, it just seemed like she was guilty, even with it being circumstantial, because they could not prove how Kaylee died. And that's always a problem obviously, when you don't know the cause of death. I
Mhm.
mean, the manner of death was obviously homicide, because this is what Dr. G said. She's a famous medical examiner. She had her own show, but she testified in this case, and she said no child should have duct tape on their mouth, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
a homicide. But they didn't know the manner of death. I mean, which is it, the manner or the cause? Well, anyway, they didn't know the cause of death. So it was very circumstantial, but we all thought she was guilty. And everybody still thinks she's guilty. And so I want to talk about next week her documentary and why it changed my mind, your mind, and my friend that I used to work with, because she and I were hardcore Casey haters. We just thought she got away with murder. So it's very interesting because it gets into abuse and how that affects you, you know,
Yep.
the
And
trauma.
also like the PTSD
Oh, yeah,
happens, and also how like all the lying she did, that's tied to it as well. It's so
exactly.
interesting. I mean, I will say that like there is a psychology to that. And we know so much more about the psychology of children who've gone through PTSD or who suffer from PTSD and who've gone through traumatic experiences now than we even knew before.
Mhm.
Um, so it's really interesting. It was so fascinating, and
Yeah.
I was glued to the documentary, and I didn't follow the case. I sat there and watched it, and I couldn't stop. I had to, like, binge it, and
Yeah.
I am not somebody who enjoys I'm gonna, like, just reveal here. I do not enjoy watching television. I do not enjoy I am a like, it's funny, I love period pieces, you know this about me.
Hey, no, I
I'm
don't. You know
a
this
sucker
about me.
I'm such a sucker for a period piece, but I don't enjoy watching television, and I don't enjoy watching movies. I enjoy Jeopardy, and I like period pieces. There you
You mean
go.
you mean happy things, not like me?
Yeah, right.
I
No,
listen to these podcasters. I listen to podcasters who are like, when I'm feeling down, nothing hits the spot like a good murder mystery. I don't know what it is. Like when you're down, you want to watch even stuff that makes you pulls you down even further. But you know
right.
what? I really appreciated that you watched it because I know you're not into this type of, this subject. And so when you told me after you watched it that you believed her, I was like, see, because I respect your opinion. I know that you're not one that would be, have the wool pulled over your eyes or be gullible or whatever. And just as my friend that I used to work with. And so the fact that both of you, she texted me before when it premiered, and she goes, "Are you going to watch it?" And I go, "No, I don't want to hear her lie anymore." She goes, "I got to watch it." And then of course I was like, "Well, then I got to watch it too." So then, and then half after the first, it's a three-part series. After the first episode, I think into the second, I texted her. I was like, "Holy crap!" She goes, "Girl, just keep watching." And by the third one, we were texting each other. It was like, I cannot believe, but I believe her.
Yeah,
So,
I think the thing that really knocked it home for me was watching her self-composure, watching what had happened to her through the, like, process of maturing and becoming an adult, and then watching just all like, her body language and her facial expressions, when she talked about her childhood. That, to me, was so incredibly painful and
mhm,
so gut-wrenching, and she really went to a place, you could tell, I mean, yeah, it was just really, and also she's been working, with the legal team that helped her. She has been working for the guy who was her attorney. She is like a paralegal. She could probably be an attorney right now with the
yeah,
wealth of information that she has. She has avoided media spotlight. She has avoided social media and social networking. She has avoided um, being out there because she is so recognizable.
yeah,
And she works and she does her job, and um she is like she considers this legal team that basically had to take care of her because she lost her family.
yeah. It's
Um
pretty incredible what they did for her after she was acquitted.
and and I have a lot of respect for this legal team, but I think they just discovered what a wonderful person she is. I just have to back up really quickly because you said that the jury acquitted her because they they didn't have enough evidence to convict her.
Mhm.
Um, I have had a lot of people ask me questions like settlements. Why do people settle? Why are there so many settlements in cases that never see trial? And I've talked to several attorneys about this. And one of the things that is very, very, very telling is when you read in the news, whether it's somebody high profile like Donald Trump who settled yet another lawsuit, or whether it's something small, a small settlement like, say, between two cars that get into an accident. the fact of the matter is, many times the settlement is twofold. One, we can't bog down our courts with every case that comes down the pipeline. That would be so crazy. It would take up too many man hours, too many resources, cost too much money, and put a burden on our legal system. Number two, it majority of the time, I'm saying, like, I don't know the exact percentage, it indicates the person who is settling is at fault. They will say to them, if you go to trial, you will lose. You will have to pay all the court costs. You will have to pay all the restitution money. And you will also suck up all of these resources, and it's very expensive. If you take this deal, you are accepting, you are settling, basically saying, I'm guilty. I, hit this driver going 85. I was drunk and I, picked a fight with someone. I am, you're saying I'm wrong. I'm in the wrong. I'm going to, you know, take this deal that I've been given so that we can just keep moving and close this case up and sign all the papers and move on to the next thing. And
Yep.
it's in the best interest of the attorney, of the people who are in, like, the state or the county or the city legal system, to get people to settle, because again, it uses up valuable resources that costs those systems lots and lots of money, and every case doesn't get to see the light of day. And so when I've heard people make really, 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 like, outrageous claims like, well, we settled because we just didn't want to drag everybody through the legal system, or we settled because we just felt so badly for everyone involved. It's like, no, you settled because you're as guilty as sin, and you took whatever they were offering you because you knew the evidence was mounted against you, would have been proven. And the other thing is, a lot of people don't want their dirty laundry aired out in public. So
Yes.
that's the other reason why they settle, because they don't want everybody in their neighborhood or everybody in their community or all their family members knowing he did what on the internet.
Yeah.
She ate what for breakfast? Like, he
Hmm.
used to wear what to work? They don't want that information out in the world. So I just had to, like, throw that out there because so many times people say, well, I thought this was going to be a big case. I don't understand why it just. So the ones that make it to trial, I mean, people are either fighting desperately tooth and nail for their innocence, you know, or
Hmm.
I think nowadays, a lot of times there are people who really they want that spotlight, they want that notoriety. They
Yeah.
realize that it generates more clicks, and in a world where more clicks means you're a bigger, you're top dog, why not?
Hmm. Do you think Brian Koberger is going to go to trial, or if he's going to plea before then? The trial, well, the preliminary is the end of June, so the trial probably is not going to be till next year if he doesn't plead.
Mhm. I I so it can go several ways. If he has committed more crimes and they find them, like, they find more evidence, evidentiary findings that he's involved in other crimes.
Now I remember what I was saying 30 minutes ago. Go ahead.
I could see him taking a deal because the evidence against him would be, obviously, it would be more than one case if there were more than one crime. But if he I could see him wanting to go to trial. I feel badly for his situation because I think that, the teenage bullying and the heroin addiction and his course of study. And then also the thing that I find very unsettling is all of the messages when he's trying to reach out to these girls.
Hmm.
I feel like he's going to want that media spotlight.
Yeah, and all of that brought up again. He can look at all his handiwork, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
that's what I was
there's
gonna say.
copycats out there who look at these things and think, "Ooh, I could do that." And there's also people that glorify these types of things on the internet. It's salacious and it feeds, something inside them. So,
Well, I'm guilty. Um, what I was gonna say earlier was, so now there's this YouTuber out who he's one of the people that, like, posted that video, that audio rather, and whether it's, uh real, we don't know. But he also posted this video of a murder that happened, and I don't have all the details, but it was before the Idaho Moscow murders. And I think it was a single person. And I guess he used to like to jog at night with a headlamp. And so, not to say he's the only person in America that does that, but this person put out this video with the timeline, and it could be complete trash. But I kind of feel like it he may have done it before, because to successfully kill 4 people in the house and get out, I mean, he's caught now, but he got away with it for a little while. I just feel like you don't go from 0 to 4 people. I mean, I guess it could be done, but I would not be surprised if he had done it before.
Yeah, that's why when he said, did they catch the other people involved or anyone else?
Mhm.
I thought, oh, I don't I don't know. I didn't think I think he I don't know. I don't think he meant to say did mean that someone helped him, but I wonder if he was dropping some crumbs or something.
Oh. Ooh, I never thought of that. I just thought
Yeah.
maybe he was gonna throw them off the scent, but that could be a little, like, subliminal, like, subconscious thing.
Yeah, that's what I wondered when he said that because I thought how interesting. Yeah, so we are going to have to wrap things up. I
Okay.
swear to you, every single time I think there's no way that we could have already hit our hour mark, but we have.
That's because we
So
just blah, 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 blah.
hey, you did a lot of homework for this one. Thank you so much. And also, again, for our listeners, if you guys have any comments or you feel like we left something out, or if you have anything to add about
Like a
these,
pronunciation correction.
yeah, then definitely there is a way that you can, whether you're listening through Apple Podcasts or through Spotify, that you can, or wherever you get your podcasts, that you can ask a question, and we'll definitely, first of all, we'll probably completely freak out because we haven't had any yet, but
Yeah.
also we'll answer them and we'll read them at some point. I mean, not if they're really dumb, but if they're great, we'll
Or if they're really mean, we're not gonna read them.
exactly. Like, what's the matter with Cheryl's voice? Don't be talking about how you can't stand the sound of her voice. Sounds like she's got a cold, because she does probably. But that having been said, we're going to have to wrap it up.
Oh my gosh. Well, this was so much fun. I hope you guys had fun listening to us
Oh
and our
yeah,
crazy
don't
thoughts.
forget to subscribe and to follow us on your podcast listening platform. The more subscribers we get, then we get to
Put
read
out better audio content, better
exactly.
audio quality.
Exactly, exactly. And just remember again, we are learning as we go.
That's right. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Have a great week and happy Lunar New Year.
Bye.
Bye.